Ready?
We're recording.
Okay. Welcome back to the Andrea Giovino Show. I want to thank also the subscribers that continue to subscribe. And today we're going to jump into the deep streets in the 80s in New York City. How horrific it was, how raw it was. And we have in-house Mike Suarez telling his story to Toby and myself of what it was like actually being in the streets. Mike, can you tell the audience?
Yeah, well, thanks for having me on. My story is, I would say, compared to a lot of the Puerto Ricans back then in the late 60s and 70s, because I am from that era, a product of the Vietnam War back in 65. Mom's being 15 years old, father 19. He was drafted.
Wow.
He was never able to see me. He went to war. Imagine that, fighting a war, and your wife is pregnant and you can't see your unborn son yet, you know? So that's how it all started. Of course, you know, I was born, I'm here, thank God. I was given away to my grandparents because my mother was 15 years old, so she was kind of young, unexperienced, and they did give her permission to marry my father, which I have the birth certificate, and they gave him permission at that time because she was too young. So I appreciate the fact that she did carry me for 9 months, and she brought me to the world. My grandparents, they had, I would say, another 7 kids. So, you know, that's an addition to...
I think it was very, very hard for the Puerto Rican culture even back then, more so than even now.
Yeah, because although we were like one of the first Spanish nationalities, because, you know, we serve in all wars, you know, we're always there. You know, we have a lot to do with, you know, the growth of, you know, the United States. We fought in every war and we contribute, you know, a lot. Unfortunately, a lot of times, you know, there was unfair treatments, but of course we're here and we have succeeded and we have overcome a lot of...
I think a lot of unfair treatment to the Puerto Rican culture in general, and I think that a lot of their stories need to be told. They just need to be told.
So let's get into the part of New York that you're from, specifically.
Yeah. Well, I was born in the South Bronx back in 1965, and rough area back then. Okay, you probably had maybe a few buildings, the rest were burned down. It was a tough area. Of course, I wasn't really truly raised there because they took us to Puerto Rico. We spent up till I was 5 years old. My grandfather passed away and my grandmother was forced to come back to the United States. And this is where it all started. We ended up in East New York back in 1970, 69, 70. Rough, because we were the only Puerto Rican family there, and everybody was, you know, African American, a lot of gangs. It was the era of the warrior type of movie.
Right.
So, of course, I was a kid going to school.
How did you get involved with the wrong crowd?
Well, for whatever reason, things happened where my grandma passed away. So now we were forced to be spread it out amongst the family. My mother was old enough now. Now she took possession of me, and she didn't really know how to be a mother, so I don't blame her. You know, I was...
It's a baby having a baby.
Exactly.
That's exactly what it is.
And so, you know, back then, like I said, we were the only Puerto Rican family there. So every day I'll go to school, I get beat up, I come back with busted eye, busted lip, busted nose, cracked head. Like, I was like, wow, you know, this is tough, you know. And for whatever reason, they used to send me and my cousin alone to go to school, go like 8 blocks. I lived in Logan between Sutter and Belmont, I believe some of you guys know. Pretty tough area back then.
It's the rough streets of East New York City.
Very rough. The roughest of the roughest, because the precinct is one of the worst homicide up to now still. The 75th precinct, you know, known to be...
Let me ask you this, though, Mike. How old were you when you committed your first crime?
Crime, when you say crime...
something illegal.
Maybe probably getting involved in illegal activity.
Yeah.
That happened, I would say, that was at the age of 11.
That's young.
Yeah, and what happened was from being in East New York after my grandmother passing away, and they gave me away to my mother. She took care of me for a while, but unfortunately, she was at the time with someone that she was living, which was an alcoholic. So I experienced things that I didn't really like, and I was feeling a little threatened and scared as
Of
a
course.
young 8-year-old, 7-year-old.
That's very hard.
Yeah, I got hit by a car living with her because I wasn't really being supervised. Almost lost my life at 8 years old.
Street
Woke
kid.
up in a
So
hospital.
you were raising yourself.
Yeah. So, also I was involved with a gang at 8 years old. The sex boys, they call them, young kids running around with colors and combat boots and bandanas and trying to be part of something, to try to have somebody
try to fit in.
help me out, back me up, because I had no brothers, no sisters. I was all alone. And, I'm not such a tall stature person, so I had to learn how to carry myself in a way where I had, defend myself. So getting back to my first crime,
Yeah.
it wasn't necessarily a crime, but from East New York, my mother was able to take me to the Lower East Side, LES. She had family there from her ex that she was living with. She was no longer with him, so we went to live in the Lower East Side, which that's where I got the school of life. That's where I got my degree, because
The degree of the streets, essentially.
the
is what you're
streets
saying.
degree, yes, that's where I was introduced, and I saw a lot of things at an early age, from prostitution to drugs to being around junkies, and I was still going to school. I was going to school by myself, so it was always hard. I never really had anybody to take care of me. There's other stories that led up to depression as a child, going through, seeing a lot of things, knowing that I didn't belong in that environment, but again, I was a product of it. So for whatever reason, I always had faith that something was protecting me,
Yes.
because I did get hit by a car. I fell off a 2-story fence in the park. My mother was talking to some guy and she wasn't paying attention, and I fell and almost got, again, back to the hospital with a concussion.
Wow.
And, here it is, an 8-9-year-old boy going through so many struggles in life. And I said, well, there's got to be a purpose, because as I say now, God gives the strongest battles to his strongest soldiers, right? So I'm assuming that was part of what was happening in my life. Heavily involved with drugs. I needed to make a living, so I was carrying stuff for people because I was a kid, so the cops weren't gonna
Right.
check me.
So and I know it was very young, but how young were you? Did you start getting involved with the drugs? Like what age are we talking?
I would say about 11 years old.
That's pretty young.
Yeah, 11. But I was 11 years old, but I was like a little man. They called me Little Man. As a matter of fact, I remember I had an afro. I was a tough little guy because I was learning martial arts. In the block, the guys there that, I was raised with, they were all martial artists. Most of them were coming back from the Vietnam War. So they liked me because I was a good kid, I was tough, and I was able to follow directions. So they just told me, look, just take this over there. Don't ask any questions. They're going to give you some money back. Just put it, in the bag and come back. And I did that for a few times. I got a few dollars. I was able to buy a bike, I felt like, hey, here I am. No brothers, no sisters. Mom's is not around. She was young. She was, in the party world, It's understandable
You're
now that I'm
actually raising yourself.
Yeah, I was raising myself, exactly.
Now these guys that were grooming you to do this, because essentially you're getting groomed at that point
Yeah.
to step into that world of crime that
Yeah.
you're stepping into. How old were these older guys?
They were teenagers. They were in their 18s, 19.
Right.
One of my friends, I just did a 50-year reunited with him after 50 years. We celebrated. I know the guy for 50 years, and he's still around. So,
But
yeah.
I could say with my own experience of growing up in the streets myself, kids that age are way beyond their years. your street smarts,
Yeah.
and that goes a long way.
Exactly. So
You know, you just are. You learn people skills. You learn how to manipulate. You learn how to get through the streets. You just learn everything.
that's where I was going to head to. So being a young person, sleeping by yourself, worried that someone's going to,
Do something to
rape
you.
you,
Yeah.
hurt you. I used to always sleep with a little knife.
Mm-hmm.
I used to have a little knife that I used to fold, and I would sleep with it because I was afraid.
Excuse me, we had to cut for a couple minutes. Mike had gotten extremely emotional over his childhood, which I definitely can relate to because I've been there. So, and I know how hard it is to open up and share, and I know you've not done this. I feel that for me it was a healing, and for me, I believe if you can help one child, just one child, with your story, it's a big deal, and it's a healing for you. So if we can just jump right back in.
Yeah, of course.
So you were 8 years old.
So-
we were back at where the knife was, and you were worried about someone trying to either molest you, touch you, hurt you in any way.
Exactly. So where I was at, I felt like I didn't trust the atmosphere because I was always being left somewhere. My mom's, being young and not having a lot of experience. I forgave her. I forgive her. She's my mother. She
You have
carried me
to.
for 9 months. She gives me all the love now, and I appreciate it. So she made
Can I
up for
say
it.
this as a mom myself?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I was a teenage mom. Toby, I had.
Yeah.
I was 18. So I understand. She's a baby herself.
Right.
She doesn't know. She doesn't really know how to be a mom.
Right.
You learn that later in life, and that's why she's probably now trying to be the best person she can possibly be, because she didn't know any better. And then you got to think about what cards were dealt to her.
Exactly. And I totally understand. That's why I call her every day.
Right.
And there's not a day that doesn't go by that I say, Mom, I love you.
Right.
And I'm here for you.
Which is a great point, because like I seen it with my mother, being a young teenage mother to now being a grandmother, and how she is and how she's developed and changed
Right.
as the person, and who she's become today compared to who she was when I was a kid.
Right.
Is a much better person today, as I know you are, and as is also the importance of this conversation that we're having. I mean, essentially,
of course.
you're a guy that's from the streets. I mean, you're a street guy basically, and I don't think a lot of people understand, even the street guys that are out there sometimes. What's misunderstood is the fact that you grow up in this life and in this lifestyle, and this lifestyle grooms you to be a certain way and do certain things and perform and commit certain acts based on your environment and the people you're surrounded by. And I feel like you are a product of that, but like my mother, you're also a product of someone that's actually changed their life around. I just wanted to throw that in there because we know you personally.
And I'd like to say, I'd like to say to the audience, I know Mike quite a few years now, and we're very good friends.
Yes.
And I have to say, honestly speaking from the gut, you are a gentleman. In every way, shape, and form, you are a gentleman. And I had this conversation with Toby on the way here. I was, had some interactions recently with street guys that I grew up with that have never grown. They spoke very inappropriate to me as a man wanting to come onto a woman. Very inappropriate. Like, you just don't do that. And I've not had that with relationships that have developed. Like, certain people never grow up and never develop.
Exactly.
And they stay stuck. You have developed, and you have become the person that God intended you to be, which is a gentleman, and I'm proud to call you my friend.
Thank you so much. There's a lot of truth to that. Like I said, I was self-taught. I went to school, I graduated. I have friends that I just reunited after 45 years. They could vouch for that. They could attest for that, I was a good guy all the time. I was just involved with people, and I always felt like my friends were my family.
It's survival.
And I played the good part for most part. I was always there. And a lot of people took advantage. Of course, people usually take advantage of good hearts. But because of who I am and how I was raised, I knew what they were doing. but I let them get away with it because I just wanted to keep them around me. I still needed them for whatever reason.
What the reason is because you wanted the love for the family. You didn't have a family outside of that.
Right, exactly.
So you needed that.
Right.
So the streets become your family.
Yeah, definitely.
So let's get back into the streets now. So,
Yeah.
you're 11 years old,
Yeah.
and you're basically shifting drugs back and forth. That's what they're doing because they're doing that because they can't. If you get arrested, you're not going to be facing any real jail time because you're a kid.
Right,
So
right.
that's the game that they
Yeah.
play on the streets, which I think is important to bring out because, this is the harm that's done to these young kids that are in the hood
Yeah,
or
of
in bad
course.
neighborhoods or in ghettos.
And we need money.
They
need.
use, yeah, they use
we need to
these-
survive.
They
Yeah.
use these young kids because they know that if they get locked up, there is no serious consequence.
Exactly.
But the serious consequence is
The
what
mental
comes-
damage that
and,
they
and
do.
what comes later on.
Yeah, of course.
So
of course.
let's now go into the next phases of your
Yeah,
life.
yeah.
There's 11, there's 13, there's 15. And
Yeah.
it goes and then it goes into to being an adult.
Yeah. So, yeah, definitely. So after I learned the skills and I learned the people, I had them as my friends, I ended up going to Bedford-Stuyvesant.
Do or die, Bed-Stuy.
Yeah, so that's where I started my adolescent,
Rough neighborhood.
the rough neighborhood again, Puerto Rican in a, different environment. It was tough.
That was a heavily black
Yeah,
neighborhood.
that's where I,
Well,
I met up with Jay-Z as kids. We, we lived together. We played Skelsies. We did our little kid thing running around. But I was a little kid running around playing games, but I had a lot of experience already, And I was always a leader. I was always the guy in control of, okay, let's put something together, And I did put things together because I started meeting the Puerto Ricans in the neighborhood. I found one over here, another one over here, and we started, at first they didn't like me because they felt intimidated. This young Spanish Puerto Rican guy come in here and he thinks he's tough. I always act tough because I had to protect myself. So, I ended up fighting, a few times in the street, getting my respect from, and it's ironic because I ended up fighting my own people.
Yeah. That's usually how it goes.
Yeah, but you know what? Once they knew that I was like a real person, a true guy and loyal, then I was part. Immediately, they made me friends, part of the group, and we started going out dancing. That's when the era of roller skating was happening, and we set up also, a little crew, a little skate crew, and that was it. Nightclub and
I know you
and
did some
skating.
prison time.
Yeah, the prison time came a few years down the road. I got involved with that world once again. Yeah.
Before we jump into the prison time, I know you were then you were in the streets. You were basically in the streets. Basically, once you hit young adult years,
Yeah.
you essentially were moving on to bigger things in the world of organized crime or
Yes. So what happened was, I'm the type of person that, as I go through life, whatever's good that I know I will be able to utilize it later on for a
Right.
profit or just to have someone involved that I could say, I know that person and I have contacts, because contacts is number one, is key. The more people you know, the better for yourself because you're able to move around and
your reputation in the streets.
Exactly.
It means everything.
My reputation was very important. I already had a reputation of being a guy that I was in a pushover,
Right.
and I hung out with everyone that I hung out with was a tough guy, or they were,
Street people.
Street people that, So getting to the
Prison.
time, yeah. So I got a group formed together. I put a group together, and because I had the contacts from the Lower East Side, I had people that were already very big in the drug industry, in the streets, There was a time in the 80s.
Very common in the 80s.
Yeah, in the 80s.
In the 80s, it was so common back in the 80s, not just drug dealers and illegal drug activity, but you had businessmen, celebrities, everybody was doing drugs. Everybody was doing
Yes.
cocaine. People wanted drugs.
Yeah.
So somebody had to provide them.
Yes, I remember just hanging on the corner, limousines coming from stars
yeah.
coming to pick up cop drugs, you know.
Exactly.
Yeah. So again, I had the connections. Here I am. I'm putting this team together, this organization on my own. I said, okay, we're gonna do this like this. I was giving the orders. I was helping my
Let
friends.
me ask you this question. Did you just deal with the Puerto Ricans, or did you deal with any Italians or blacks or any other culture? Because in that era,
Yes.
like I know as an Italian in an organized crime, you're making money, you're going to deal with everybody.
Yeah, so this is the way it works. In the streets, there is no nationality,
Right.
there's no color.
Right.
Money's money. That's the color. That's money.
Exactly.
Green is what we look for. So my group was most of them were all Puerto Ricans.
Okay.
But when it came to go out there and make money, we had things going that we didn't discriminate. You know, we just want to make the money. So obviously, like I was saying, Lower East Side was named Alphabet City because every block had a drug spot.
Right.
And every block at that time, when I recall, because I knew a lot of people back then, and I hear stories and I see things myself, everybody was making a lot of money. I mean, it was really controlled by the Puerto Ricans in that area. Perhaps they were, you know, getting their supplies from, you know, Italians
and
or
back in that
yeah.
era, you didn't hear about cooperation. You didn't hear about people.
Yeah, it was a different.
It was a whole different time.
Yeah, I remember getting picked up a few times in the street, smacked by cops. They wanted me to talk. They bust my lip, my nose. I ain't saying nothing because I grew up a certain way with the
Exactly.
code of silence that today people
not like
people
that
don't
today.
know. You know, I mean, I
They
was
don't
in
know that word
situations.
loyalty.
Yeah. So I was exactly
The word
loyalty. I'm a
loyalty.
loyal person.
Right.
Like I'll die just.
Right.
You know, I can't do it. I just can't do it because I wasn't raised like that. I don't have that in my blood. But
And I have a lot. I think you know. Recently, I had a very good friend, 40 years in prison. He just died. He was never
Yes.
able to rap. Mark Ryder. He was just
Yes.
never able. He just didn't have it in him. There are
Yes.
guys that don't have it in them.
yeah, don't get me wrong. I was 17 years old when I got picked up by a Fed operation. We did something that I didn't even know what was happening, but behind my back, you know, a few of my friends did something. Me being the guy that I am, I want to have control of everything because I want to make sure everything is going correctly. I get caught up and I'm like, wow, I didn't belong here. That wasn't for me. That was for, you know, other people that
Right.
were doing this transaction. I ended up, you know, I was facing 25 years to life, you know, under the Rockefeller law, you know. And, you know, by the grace of God, I was able to maneuver and I was sentenced to 3 to life.
Okay.
Which 3 to life is still a life sentence. Yeah. And they treat you like a lifer. And at 17, I had a $1 million bail. You know, it was tough to come out. But then it was reduced and I was able to come out.
So
And,
to put that in perspective, at 17 years old
Yeah.
with a $1 million bail, that's like a 17-year-old now having a $10 million. Because
Yes.
$1 million back then was a lot of money.
Of course it was.
It's a
Yeah.
lot of money now, but
Yeah.
it was even that much more money back then.
Yes. So, I mean, just imagine what I was involved.
Yeah.
You know, it was a lot of money. It was a lot of money, and being young and seeing, you know, all this happening, and you know, being able to witness so many things so young, gave me, you know, the opportunity to be able to make decisions. Unfortunately, I was caught up in other people's decisions. That, you know, because
you had literally no guidance. There was no dad.
right,
no
right.
mom.
Oh yeah. I
So
didn't-
what do you expect the child to be? It's a product of the environment in your neighborhood.
Right.
That's what it is.
Right, and getting back to that part, the no dad thing, I had uncles that would beat me up and hit me with wires.
Oh my God.
Stop.
Just go. No, keep going. You need to feel that emotion. You need to have the audience understand how severe
I know,
that
I know.
is.
Yeah, so as a child, you know, to have somebody that was on drugs, you know, like supervising supervising me and my cousin, and the way he used to treat us, it was kind of cruel. Which I got my my vengeance later on in life. Unfortunately, I had to do what I had to do. I just gave him a little whipping myself, just to show him that he had to realize that what he did was wrong, and what goes around comes around. But up to today, my aunt don't speak with me because I had to just let him know that.
Too bad.
Exactly.
But how bad of a beating did you give him?
No, I just told two of my good
Slap him
friends,
around?
just hold him, and
Yeah.
I just gave him a nice whack, just to let him know that what he did was wrong.
Yeah.
And maybe that probably taught him a lesson, because he had children too, and he had to know that
That's
you don't
sick.
do that
He's
to
very
other
sick.
kids.
He's very sick.
Well, wherever he's at, he
very
passed
sick.
away, so.
Children are the
yeah.
most innocent. Oh,
Yeah,
I
yeah, of
always say
course.
children
Yeah.
and animals are the most
Yeah, of
innocent.
course.
And to do
Yeah.
that, you have to be a very sick individual.
Yeah. So with my life, because I was going through so much turmoil at such an early age, I was trying to trust, but it's hard because you give your trust to someone, you don't know if that trust, they're going to turn it around and use it to hurt you. So I was always like sleeping, like I was telling you, with a knife in my, because I.
Terrible.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry that you went through all of that. But believe me, I can relate to you because I came
Yeah,
from a
yeah,
very
yeah.
horrific background, as you know.
And it's-
And I still today, I don't trust anyone. I just have trust issues.
Yes.
I've always had trust
Yeah,
issues.
yeah, of course.
It just doesn't go away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But let's just get to the part of the when I got arrested for the transaction that I was involved in. It was tough, because there, who are you going to trust when you have all this money in the streets and you own cars and you own so much stuff? All that stuff, people come out of nowhere, they steal them,
Oh,
people
yeah.
get away, they think, you're going away forever. Oh, they caught Mike, he's
Oh,
going
yeah.
for life. So you lose a lot, And, it might not look like it's hard work, but it's dangerous work.
Mm-hmm.
Every day you wake up, you watch your back. Every day it's just a world that it's not a good world. But if you're in that environment, you don't know anything else. I wanted to continue education. I graduated from high school. I had my diploma, but that diploma wasn't going to make me the money that I needed for my lifestyle back
Right.
then. So, of course, we get caught up on that. A lot of young people get caught up on the money. You forget about, what you really have to do is, continue the right path. But we get caught up and we get blinded by the money. So, which is, of course, we all been there. Okay, we see money and we just forget about
The
you know,
consequences
exactly.
of what it could lead
Yes.
to.
So I did. I went upstate. I did my time, and I was one of the fortunate ones. I was able to come out on work release after doing 2 years, but the first 2 years were very hard. 2 years.
You were a kid.
Yeah, I mean, you go to Rikers Island. They have a war there of slashing people from
Oh,
ear
yeah.
to you got to be tough. At the year that I went in in 1984. It was Gladiator School, C-74. Most people probably heard. It's tough, but I thank God that I came out the way I went in, because I went in with someone.
And I've had people on my show, which I think you've
Yeah.
met. His whole face was
Yeah,
slashed.
of course, I know.
You know who I'm
yes,
talking about.
Yes, I watch
Whole
his
face
show.
slashed.
Yes. I have a lot of friends like that. Most of the guys that I was inside, when I saw them upstate, they already had their 40, 50 stitches in their face. So I was lucky. I was fortunate. And that's when everything started. You get sent up north, and
You grow up.
you grow up
real
very quick. You have to grow up quick, because now you're totally on your own. And you don't want to put your family, whoever you love, to go 8 hours out there to
Right.
see you. I was the type of person, I say, you know what? I mean, whoever wants to see me, fine. But the only one that I did have was my wife at the time.
Where were you, Dannemora?
I was in Elmira.
Elmira's up there.
Right, they
Dannemora's up
sent me
there.
to Attica
Yeah.
and Coxsackie, all the gladiators
Right.
schools. Not schools. I'm sorry, prisons, where you learn how to
Survive.
think.
Yeah.
What's your next move?
It's
you actually
chess.
exactly. They open that gate. You don't know from this side or this side who's gonna hit you. So you have to be, it's tough.
tough.
It's tough. But again, I was able to do the right thing, and I was released on work release.
And
know,
and from coming out, you changed your whole life.
So what happens is this, okay? You're young. You go in there. You get scared. We say we're going to change.
Yes.
You know, God touches you. Most of us that are, believers, have faith. I read the whole Bible. They give you a small Bible. I read the whole Bible. I had a rosary. But I was still I had to be part of the prison system. Mm-hmm. That was just the backup plan, like, get me out of here. You see a wall that you don't know if you're ever going to get out of that, Attica wall. It's a very high wall. And you have the guards with, the rifles there. So you're like, wow, am I ever going to get out of here? But you come out with good intentions. You want to change your life. But I changed my life for a while. I went to real estate school. I got my real estate license. I started doing real estate. I thought my life was completely out of that world until
Part two with Mike's story, because he needs a little bit of a breather. Thank you.